This week we're looking at fantasy calendars. We're going to go through some examples of ones that exist within settings in 5e, plus we'll talk about creating your own, how to keep it simple, and how to use it to create a lived and breathing world. Welcome to We Speak Common. Hello and welcome to another episode of the D&D podcast for everyone, because here we speak common. I said it right this week. I got a message from Sam who listened to last week's episode and had a go at me for saying it wrong, because usually he says it along with me. I don't think anyone else does that. It's very, very sad, to be honest, but there you go, Sam. I did it right for you this time. This is the D&D podcast that is brought to you in partnership with two wonderful partners, the first of which is the Dice Dungeon. They are your one-stop shop for wonderfully crafted, pristine, and premium D&D dice, both metal and resin, as well as other D&D paraphernalia like books or dice trays. That's coming up very, very soon, I have heard. I've just realised I'm not sure if I meant to say that. Oh well, they're coming eventually. Ben will tell me off if I get it wrong. If you want to go and check out the stock, head to the description of this podcast, this episode of this podcast. You'll find a link. You can copy and paste it, or if you're on one of the platforms that allows you to click on that link, just click on it, and there you go. You can have a little browse. You can get 10% off your entire order if you use the code WeSpeakCommon at checkout. The other partnership to tell you about is, of course, Describe. DS... Oh, God, how do you spell it? I do this every week. DSCRYB.com. Describe is your one-stop shop, there you go, for creative writing for box text to use in your own homebrew worlds. So thinking spells, monsters, and locations, and soon they'll be adding, I think it's items as well. You can go have a look at Describe's website. If you're not very good at writing that descriptive, flavorful box text yourself, they'll do it all for you using their professional writers. You can have a look at a limited selection for free, and if you want access to the whole catalogue, it's a monthly subscription service with 10% off every month for your first 2 years with the code COMMON at checkout. Go and have a look at that too. Of course, we are supported by our wonderful Patreons who get access to loads of cool stuff, like what I think is the coolest stuff, and they probably don't think is the coolest stuff, probably on the bottom of the list, is my homebrew rule sets, which I put up on Patreon. If you want to get a look at those, you can head to the link below. But they also get access to, and this is the good one, is a private Discord server where we sit and talk and chat all the time. And we have recently, as in yesterday, launched the We Speak Common play-by-post. Wonderful supporter, Firestorm, is running a play-by-post game within the Discord server, and everyone else is joining in a roleplay tavern. So if you want to do a bit of role-playing when you're not playing D&D, you can come and join us for that, as well as talking about just all good things Dungeons and Dragons. Right, now that that's out of the way, hello, James. How you doing?
Good, thanks. Yourself?
Yeah, good. I'm a bit flustered. I can't believe I forgot how to spell describe.
I mean, you quite often forget how to spell things.
Well, yeah, that's the dyslexia, but there you go. What's even worse is that just before recording, I went, "Oh, I'll get out my partnership items," and then went, "Oh, I don't need those. I know what I'm saying."
Yeah, you know, just wing it.
Cursed myself is what I did. That's exactly what I did. Before we jump in to chatting away, I want to tell you something that I literally saw before coming up here to record, up here being into my studio, and I think you'll appreciate it. So I came across, and it links quite well within Dice Dungeon. Came across someone talking about having special dice, and like, oh, what's that one peculiar special dice that you have? Now I know what your answer is. If you would like to say it, I don't know if you want to reveal.
The 5th anniversary dice for 5e that you wanted a little sapphire in.
Ooh, those expensive dice.
Yeah, rather expensive. Always bust that one out for the extra special rolls.
I was just going to say, have you ever actually rolled them?
Yeah, I've used them quite a bit actually.
Well, that's all right then.
Yeah, because you get a d20 without the little sapphire in. So you don't have to worry about breaking it, and then use the sapphire one for those just when you need that extra little bit of luck.
Do you know what I keep saying I think someone needs to make is a dice display stand? Like, imagine having a little thing to put on your like your bookshelf or something that looked like a cool runic like magical item holder, and you just put your awesome dice on it. Someone's got to come up with that somewhere.
It's probably already a thing on somewhere on the internet.
I've never found one, so if you know of one, by all means send it to me, because I have lots of beautiful Dice Dungeon dice that I would put on display that tend to stay in their boxes until I roll them currently.
Yeah, mine are all sat there with the lids off the boxes, just
so you can see them.
Yeah.
Nice. So the die that I came across, and I hate to say this, but it was on a TikTok, was a singular D20 in a circular wooden case, right? The wooden case has a skull on it and it says Memento Mori. And when you open it, it holds just one D20 in the center of the case, right?
Yeah.
They use this die only for death saves.
That's cool.
And when they're a DM, they let their players roll it. They have to, right? That's the rule.
Yeah.
That die is made out of real human bone.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. That's a thing that exists in the world. It was an old medical skeleton.
Yeah. Oh, well, at least it wasn't the dice with baked beans in that I saw on TikTok, so...
We have very different TikTok for you pages, clearly. That's like one extreme to the other.
Yeah.
My most special dice, Ben or Dave from the Dice Dungeon, just clog your ears for a second. My most special dice are a set of dice that I was sent by a listener. In fact, Joe got a set, and lovingly enough, they sent Phoebe a set too, which was really nice. Are a set of dice that were blessed at the Gary Gygax plaque in Lake Geneva, at Lake Geneva.
Oh, that's cool.
They're my special ones, because I cannot go to Lake Geneva. I don't know if you know what's going on in the world, but currently that's not possible.
No.
So it's really cool to have that set. I've got a picture of them being blessed as well, which is awesome.
Ooh. Yeah.
But they're not a Dice Dungeon set, so...
Yeah, I mean, my second most special set, I think, is the first set of dice I ever bought. To this day, they still roll well to this very day.
That's beautiful. That's poetic.
Yeah.
My first set of dice were the set from the starter set.
Oh.
And then... Well, my first set of dice for... they were. Because all my other dice that I rolled before getting the starter set, I rolled things digitally. So, there you go.
Oh.
Anyway, that's not what we're talking about today, but a lovely topic nonetheless. So over on the We Speak Common server, I was asking just everybody what they would want to hear this week, if they could hear anything, thinking that they'd all agree on one subject. Of course, they didn't. But there's some really good ones, and I couldn't pick, and I wanted to do a subject that I wasn't going to do on my own, because there was an episode of me on my own last week, and I wanted to do one that I could, one that I could bring someone in on that I knew had been on before, because we've got a new guest coming next week if all things go according to plan. And the topic that I picked just off random, I thought would be perfect for you, because it is all about world building in a way. So I will read it to you. I know you've read it, but I'll read it to you again so that we are both refreshed. Mike asked, and I know that Sam instantly said I was going to ask this too, so I know there's a couple of people who want to hear this. Another idea I don't think you've covered: importance of a calendar and how to use it to make a more lived-in world, creating your own or using others. So we have both talked about world building before, most recently on our creation myth episode.
That's the one.
Yeah, I had to think about it too. It's not even been that long. I think it's only been like a month or something.
Feels like forever.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it has actually been like 3 months. Maybe it's been 3 years, and I just have no passage of time.
We have just had a minor D&D drought, so
Let's not talk about it. Let's not. The fact that, oh god, see, now you brought it crashing back down to me. The fact that I killed someone, we had a 3-week break, and then I killed someone else. I was writing out the recap today. Lastminuteprep.com, because all the rest was I just hadn't done the recap, and I realised when I wrote the line it's something like, for the second time in the same day, you must bury your dead.
We didn't even get through a day.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Or maybe you did. No, you must have done. I don't know, but it's something like within 24 hours, and it's disgusting. It's disgusting.
It's beautiful.
But there you go.
Well, we all like a good death.
Yeah, but not 3 in a row.
I mean,
you won't be feeling that way when it's Brayblade.
It'll never be Broblade. He spins too fast.
He's too fast. Okay, so let's talk about calendars. So I am a big advocate for making your worlds feel lived in, whether you're running a homebrew or you know, like Faerun or Eberron or whatever. I think that if you can do more to make it feel like and to give the illusion of the fact that the world is moving, even without the PCs, you know,
doing anything,
sticking their fingers in and mixing everything up, which is what they want to do. Then you're doing things right. And like we've talked about how factions are a good way to do that because they have goals and missions that they do, and you know, big players like the Open Lord of Waterdeep or the Black Stuff, whether they're good ways of doing that. But calendars is another big one.
I think calendars are really important as well as those other things you mentioned, factions. They're going to be inherently tied to the passage of time in your game. In order to record that, you need some kind of calendar, essentially.
Yeah. My first experience with calendars was a really, really poor one, to be honest. My homebrew world, as I've spoke to before, has this reoccurring natural phenomenon that happens every 26 years.
Yep. Good old convergence.
Good old convergence. I set the homebrew campaign 6 months prior to the next convergence. So the whole idea that was that as you played through the campaign and you learned things, because the convergence was so intrinsically connected to that story, that you know you would get closer and closer, and I would track that.
Yeah.
And I started tracking that by tracking days, and I wanted to pull my hair out. So then I started tracking it in terms of weeks, and then I forgot that I was tracking it, so I made it up. Then I realized I didn't have the name for days. So it was just a big mess. So I kind of just ended up being like, well, you're about 2 months away from the convergence, like, and just kind of hand waving it and leaving it a bit abstract, which worked. That it did the job.
Yeah.
And the world felt lived in for other reasons. But yeah, that was my first experience. Have you had an experience of running a calendar?
Not really. I suppose my experience is more towards playing in them. But I've been thinking about trying to implement them into my own games, perhaps a bit more. I suppose with Descent, we're vaguely considering a calendar again.
Yeah, now that we're starting to get towards the end of the journeys through Avernus.
Yeah, because just like you, I was trying to track that, but then it kind of just got a bit foggy.
Well, you kind of have the both the blessing and the curse of the fact that when you're on another plane of existence, as a DM, you can just kind of be like, time moves differently in hell. So, you know, and I think we inherently couldn't track the passage of days because we were in an abstract land. So that kind of made that a bit easier for you, I think, as well. And it will be interesting, actually, to see what they do around time when The Wild Beyond the Witchlight comes out, the Feywild Adventures. Because in the DMG, it has the passage of time as a variant rule for the Feywild, which is something I've always considered a hard rule.
Definitely, yeah.
The Feywild. So that would be interesting to see.
Yeah.
But interesting you bring up Descent, because the next time I did a calendar was running Waterdeep, and I found that it was a very key element to making that city feel very alive.
Yeah.
I mean, you were a player in that. How did you feel? Did you ever think that it was an important aspect of it?
Definitely, because as we were going, obviously, through the campaign, it didn't just feel like we were doing things, resting, and there's just this abstract idea. There's time passing, but it doesn't really matter. Instead, we had the experience of time's passing. Hang on a minute, we've got this festival now, and then obviously we've got the added complication of having the tavern, where we also want to put events on in the tavern at the same time as the festivals, and also obviously we're on the clock in terms of what everybody else is doing, and other people are involved in those festivals, and all the different things going around Waterdeep, all just sort of. It felt fully on a time thing, and like things were going without us, whether or not we did anything.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's something I want to. I mean, we'll talk about calendars first, and we'll talk about creating them and using them a little bit later on in the episode. But that's one of the things that I think makes the passage of time more trackable, is having things like holidays and events.
Yeah.
And that's something that that's very much implemented in the Waterdeep Dragon Heist book. I talked last week about how I think that the D&D adventures are going to go more in that suit of being both a setting guide and an adventure, much like Waterdeep, Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale, etc. But okay, so before I talk about holidays, one thing I guess I should say first is that you tend to find that most calendars, more often than not, mirror an earthly calendar quite closely. So they'll either have 12 or 13 months, and those months will be nearly 30 days long. And I think that is, if you're new to creating a calendar and tracking the passing of time, and maybe your players are new to it, that's a good thing to do, because they'll have that kind of frame of reference to real life. So the Waterdeep calendar, or the Faerunian calendar, as written in Waterdeep Dragon Heist, it even says literally, it's just a sidebar in the book. It's not even like a full section. It says the Faerunian calendar has 12 months that roughly correspond to the months of the Gregorian calendar. Each month has 30 days divided into 3 10-day weeks. Each week is called a 10-day. That's Faerun. Scattered throughout the year are 5 holidays that aren't considered part of any month. Once every 4 years, the holiday of Shield Me is added to the calendar as a leap day immediately following Midsummer Night. Collectively, these days create a cycle similar to what we have on Earth, 365-day years followed by a leap year. So instantly, you and the players have this anchor point of what a year looks like in this make-believe world.
It's going to make it a lot easier to remember and track as well, because you don't have to suddenly remember all of these different conversions for numbers of days and weeks and months.
And like the beauty of a 10-day is so simple. Like, oh, how long has it been? It's been a 10-day. How long's that? It's 10 days.
Yeah, I think we should just transfer out to that system in real life. Just,
honestly, I think it'd be. I love it.
Get all the months right to a nice even 30 days, and let's just have 3 10 days in a month.
Because like the seasons, I know. Look, my words. The Gregorian calendar is broken up in a certain way for a certain reason. I don't know that reason, but it's got even the seasons start at weird times. Like it was summer solstice the other day, in the middle of June. That's random. Have it at the start or the end of a month.
Yeah.
But there you go. So the months in the Faerunian calendar are, and I'm going to pronounce these wrong, Hammer, Alterac, Ches, Tarsak, Myrtle, Kythorn, Flame Rule, Elias, Elient, Marpenoth, Marpenoth, Yuktar, and Nightul. There you go. That's probably very, very wrong. But then underneath that, you've got the annual holidays. So, for example, it says Midwinter is between Hammer and Alterac. Greengrass is between Tasark and Myrtle. Midsummer is between Flame Rule and James
Eliasis.
Cheers. So it gives you these holidays that happen in rough places. But then what's even better, and I think if you're running a Faerunian campaign, get this book because it will help you with it, is at the back in the Waterdeep, I never know how to say this word, Enchiridion, the handout that is supposedly written by Volocamp that you get at the start of the campaign.
Oh, I would have to read the word, and it's not in the... what page is it on?
163.
You just cut out the silence, it'll be fine.
No, I'm going to leave it in.
Oh, yeah, that is...
It's a weird word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know it's like, I know what it means, but it's like, basically at the back of the book, there's a little handout that's in universe that you can give to the players. And it gives them a history of like Waterdeep, the Code Legal, and all of that, the taxes, the gold, all that kind of stuff.
Still my character folder, Ben, just in case.
I did give you a PDF printout, didn't I?
Yes.
Stuff. But in the back of it, after all of the stuff about the different areas and the walking statues, there is a full breakdown of city celebrations. So literally it says like, okay, month, hammer, day, 1. What happens? Winter Shield. What is Winter Shield? Well, it tells you. Marking the start of the new year, this observance is a widely recognised day off work where folk sip warmed ciders and broths, often laced with herbs for health and to bring on visions and stay inside. So it literally like gives you the month, the day, and the name of the holiday, and then a sometimes like 3-paragraph long description of what that holiday is. Now, I'm not saying you should go through your own calendar and make shit tons of holidays that have specific festivals on them. But what I am going to say is that when running Waterdeep Dragon Heist, telling the players that the what festival did we run? Remind me.
I remember we did Fleet's Wake. And did we? Was it the Grand Revel?
No, it wasn't the Grand Revel because I set it at the start of the year going into spring, and we're now, because obviously we run this well together and it links to all our campaigns, we're now heading from spring into summer. Well, we're in summer at this point.
Yeah, I remember it was the big old carnival, and
it was Fleet's Wake and Walking Tide.
Ah.
So Fleet's Wake is the festival that celebrates the sea, maritime trade, and the goods of the sea, navigation and weather. So I made it very clear to you guys that this festival's coming up and big stuff's going to happen, and you own a bar now. Do you want to, and people were coming to the bar and saying, from your street and saying, we want to hold a party on our street. Do you want to get involved as the new bar and all this stuff? And then you went to the festival, and then for a few sessions afterwards, you were seeing like the fact that there were still decorations up at places and like people were still celebrating in a smaller way. So there was this kind of passage of time where for a few sessions leading up to it, you kept hearing about this thing that was coming. And I think each session we probably averaged 2, maybe 3 days at most in game time.
Yeah, roughly about 2 or 3 days.
Yeah. So you heard about this festival coming up, then you went to it and you experienced it and you played the games and you had the fun. And then you kept seeing bits of it afterwards. So it was like, oh, I can very clearly see here how time is passing from my character's point of view.
Yeah.
I mean, that's me talking about it, the DM. And as we all know, I am very humble. So how was it for you as a player?
I really enjoyed those, the festivals. Because like I enjoyed doing all the planning for the actual bar event, and I think we did like the interviews for like cooks and waitresses and
someone
everything.
asked me once when in the middle of us running this game, a colleague at where I was working at the time was like, "Oh, you play D&D, so what's that like?" Like, people started asking me about it because I was a lot more open about it, and I was using the work studios to record the podcast and stuff at the time, so they all knew it was a thing. And someone said to me like, when I came in on Monday, they're like, "Oh, what happened in your D&D game this weekend?" I was like, "Oh, it was great. In our fantasy game of fighting dragons and going into dungeons, we ran fake interviews for bar staff."
Yeah.
And they never looked at me the same ever again.
But the best of it is, we got to know all of the bar staff, and then we kept them around afterwards.
Yeah, they became recurring characters.
Yeah, because they had an impact. Well, the whole festival had an impact on the business, not just because of the event, but there was, I think, increased business afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, going around and seeing things. I think it even came up later on in the campaign how we'd seen like was it the Mechanical Beholder or something?
Yeah, while at the festival, because there was a big parade, there was the Mechanical Beholder owned by the Acquisitions Inc. Team. Sorry, my chair's creaking. And there was also, yeah, that's right. There was a very key moment where you were in the market and they had lots of stalls out for games, and Brom watched, what's her name? The young noble lady.
I can't remember her name, but I remember who she is. Yeah.
Yeah, he saw Esvelay fight the mechanical Nimblewarts that were owned by what turned out to be Jarlaxle's ship and disguise.
Yeah.
And Brom noticed that she was faking losing and that she was actually very good at fighting, which helped him put together later on that she was in fact, spoiler alerts, the Black Viper.
Yeah.
so like stuff like that became very important.
Yeah. I think as well we had the with Fleet's Wake when we saw the submersible vehicle. I think we saw that before, during, and then after the whole thing. So just figuring out that and saying, that's what that thing is. That's why that was underneath there waiting. It's not entirely sinister.
I appreciate that you're trying not to spoil things as well. Thank you.
Yeah. But no, the passage of time was definitely something I enjoyed. Even when we had those times where we had extended downtime periods, it was definitely noticeable that you change in time from obviously before the downtime period and afterwards, which was really good as well. Yeah,
one of the things I tried to do to really convey that passage of time was focus on the seasonal changes. So I went back the other day because I still have all of my notes and things on running Dragon Heist. And in fact, if you are going to be running Dragon Heist, if you are a member of the Patreon, you can get my full DM notes on there. But the opening of that talks about how there's frost on the peak of Mount Waterdeep and stuff like that. And as the adventure progressed, and because of the way Waterdeep's written, it talks to you about, or it tells you about different parts of the city and how they look during different seasons. But because I rewrote a lot of it, I just decided what time of the year I wanted to set it and went with that.
Yeah.
So I used some of that information, but I started talking about how the days were getting a little bit warmer, and occasionally you'd have a really warm spring day, and then the next day it'd be really bloody cold again.
Yeah.
Because you weren't in spring yet. And then a little bit later on, like now, I'm running an adventure in Faerun alongside TOA and other stuff that's going on in the world.
Yeah.
And that player is currently in Daggerford, and it's now officially summer. So they're seeing the effects of summer on what the Sword Coast and what that looks like and how that changes things. So it's just like talking about the heat, talking about how that feels. Like if a character's wearing plate armor and it's a hot day, tell them they're hot and they're sweating, And if you've been playing a game that's run over the course of a couple of months, or 3 or 4 months, or even longer, then the difference between you telling them that they're sweating and that they're cold outside is going to be memorable in a small way.
I think it doesn't have to be in those small ways as well. You can make those weather changes quite big. For example, if you're up in Icewind Dale and you're at the sort of period where it's just going from autumn into winter, one day you can have it coming down with rain, then it can freeze, and then it can melt and become boggy, but then that can freeze again. And, it's going to affect how fast they can travel, the sort of things they're going to come across. They might even one day just end up getting completely stuck in the mud and not able to go anywhere.
And if they're in a very snowy region, maybe you describe the fact that it snows one day, and then you have a very nice, picturesque, clear day, and then the next day it rains and all that snow turns into that horrible slush and they have to walk through it.
Yeah.
Oh, God, that's the worst.
Yeah.
And with TOA as well, we have that in a way because it's a tropical season. I mean, it's always hot.
Yeah.
But because it's tropical, there's that risk of rain every single day. And talking about the different type of rainfall and how that makes you feel as a character, that's more of a weather effect than it is a time passing effect and a calendar effect, but it adds into it. And I think it adds that kind of breathing world feeling.
Yeah, because especially with like the weather and how people feel to different temperatures, because it's something we can all relate to as well. We know what it's like to be painfully sweaty on a really weird, humid day where it just wants to rain, but it won't rain. Totally not channeling any recent frustrations there.
Yeah, I like the fact that we've literally just had a mini heat wave in the UK, and now it's grey and wet again.
And I love it, Ben. I love it. It's grey.
Honestly, I went into work the other day and I came in a big puffy coat, and I haven't worn a coat in months, and I took it off, and the first thing I said, typical British thing, I went, "Oh, it's chugging it down in there. It's horrible." And someone went, "You like it? You said you wanted it to rain." And I'm like, "Oh no, yeah, don't get me wrong. I love it. I love it when it rains, but it's not nice out there."
Yeah.
God. Oh. Okay, should we have a quick look at some examples of other calendars in other 5e settings?
Yes, let's.
I've talked a lot about Waterdeep. Do you want to go first?
Okie dokie. Well, let's have a look.
Tell
Starting
me
off
which
with.
book you're going for, because
I've got Eberron. I know
Yeah,
you've
cool.
got that
Go
one
for
as
it.
well.
I've got it here. I am prepared this time.
So it's pretty much the same again. Mostly corresponds with obviously our calendar. The 7 days of the week in order being Sol, Mol, Zol, Ve, Zor, Far, Sa.
Sorry, say that 5 times faster.
Sol, Mol, Vol. Oh no, I've already wrecked it. Sol, Mol, Zol, Ve, Zor, Far, Sa.
That is how you make a fake language right there.
Yeah, I quite like that. They're nice and short. Might be a bit difficult to remember, mind. 7.
Thank you.
Apparently, the common calendar tracks years since the founding of the Kingdom of Galafor using the abbreviation YK.
Oh, that's something we need to talk about as well. Remind me of that, because I will forget.
Yes, and it has 12 months. So, same again. We've got Zarantyr, which is midwinter, Olorun, late winter, Ferendor, early spring. This was a difficult one. Aerie, mid-spring. Dravago, late spring. Nim, Lervion, Baracus, Ron, Siphoros, Arith, and
Careful
Volt.
how you say that one.
Yes, Arith and Volt being the last one. Yeah, that's about it for the calendar of Eberron.
So here's the thing, right? They've done 2 things that we haven't spoken about here yet. The first is they've named the days of the week. We'll get to that later. But having days named is one of those granularity things. If you want to be able to tell your characters what day it is in a game, then by all means name the days. But for me personally, I don't think tracking day by day is necessary to make the world feel lived in, unless you are potentially doing a very big lived in city and you want to have one day of the week where shops are always shut, for example.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really something I've ever stopped and thought, like, I wonder what the name of today's day is.
But now that you've said that, someone's going to want to know. You're going to want to know next time we're playing.
But
it's like Joe said he never went to the loo in D&D, and now we always take the opportunity to.
Yeah, then we purposefully went out of our way to do so, to wind Joe up.
Sorry, Ben, where's the toilet in this tavern? I'd like to use it.
But no, I think if you're going to have those days of the week, if you're playing in person, whack them on your DM screen, a little post-it note or something. If you're playing online, just have it very clearly marked out in whatever notation system you're using, so it's nice and easy to find.
Yeah, and if you are creating a world bible or a campaign setting guide for yourself, which is something that has also been requested we talk about in the near future, then this is something that you would put in it. The other thing that they've done here, which is also in Faerun, but we didn't talk about it, is that they have a very specific way of tracking the time, and that's in the years following the founding of the Kingdom of Galathar, right?
Yeah, so I think it's very much that idea of, and you'll see this in a lot of other you see in like video games, like with Elder Scrolls, you have like your different eras, and the start and end of an era is usually marked by some kind of incredibly significant event. So obviously in this case, it was the founding of the Kingdom of Galathar, which is their point, and anything before will have a different sort of like 2 letters before it, I guess.
Yeah, so here in the real world, I mean, I don't think this... We live in a simulation, but here in what we call Earth 616, you have BC and... Is it AD?
Depends on if you're religious or not.
Okay, this is right, perfect. That is a perfect segue, because in Faerun, they use Dale Reckoning, which is I'm going to get this wrong, and someone who knows it better than me is going to tell me off, but I believe it's something to do with the Sundering, or maybe something else. It's a specific calendar. Do you know what? I feel so bad. I'm going to Google it right now.
Yeah, I can't quite remember it. While you're Googling, shall I explain real world?
No, because that will hurt my brain if we jump too quickly. Okay. But I've literally got it here. So right, so in Faerun, or at least particularly the Sword Coast, they have a number of different ways of tracking the years. And when I say a number, I mean like fucking 6 of them or something stupid. So Dale Reckoning is what they use now. So when you play a D&D 5e adventure, I think, so for example, Waterdeep was set in the year 1494, I think.
Yeah, it's somewhere around
DR.
there.
Yeah, something like that. So DR means Dale Reckoning, and that's taken from the Year of Sunrise, which is 1 DR, which was when the Standing Stone was raised by the elves of Crymanthea and the human Dales folk. So that is a particular big event that happened within Faerun. However, instead of Faerun having like, oh, that's DR, and before the Year of the Sunrise, everything else was something else, instead of that, one particular region of Faerun, for example, the Sword Coast, Waterdeep, Neverwinter, they use Dale Reckoning. Somewhere else in Faerun, for example, Cormyr, use Siar, Cormyr Reckoning, which begins with the founding of House, what is it, Obscuri? It's like a dynasty that rules Cormyr. So they have, they all follow the same timeline, but they're all, if you ask someone from a different region of Faerun, they'll tell you a different date for the year.
Yeah.
Which is fucking mind-numbing. Like, it's so confusing. So for me as a DM, when I'm running Faerun, I just stick with Dale Reckoning. But you've got Dale Reckoning, Cormyr Reckoning, I don't even know this one, Tethir Reckoning, North Reckoning, Malhand Calendar, Netherall Year Calendar, which obviously was used by the Nephres and now no longer exists, and Present Reckoning, which is an attempt, I love this, in an attempt to get a handle of the various number systems in use, a new type of reckoning has been implemented, because we needed another one.
Yeah, that's simplified
with the
system, I did more.
Yeah, with an approved, implemented with the approval of such worthies as Kelbin Arasun of Waterdeep, and Vanguard Hast of Cormyr, and carried abroad by the Harpers. All year dates trace back to the time of troubles in the Year of Shadows, 1358 DR, as year 0. So even that, an attempt to make it more straightforward, has made it more complicated. However, as a DM and as a player, usually another calendar will be linked back to a Dale Reckoning year. So for example, if you were to look at the Nephres calendar, 1 NY happens on minus 3859 DR. So it always comes back to Dale Reckoning, which is the main calendar. But it's bloody confusing. So my advice, before you tell us how it works in the real world, is that don't do it. Just have one. Just have 1 or 2. don't have 6.
Yeah.
And if you have them, have the whole world use it, not just different regions. That's my advice.
Well,
so how does it work in the real world? Because
it is the real world. Obviously, I only really know the Western sort of way of measuring it properly. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if you're religious, you've got BC and AD. I can't remember what BC stands for, but basically, we always remember it's before Christ. I've always said before Christ.
Yeah.
Before the year 0, when the baby Jesus was allegedly born,
supposedly born.
Yeah. And then you've got AD, which stands for Anno Domini, which means something in Latin. But then, obviously, recently... I
always thought it meant after Christ, but that's clearly not what it means.
No, I don't think it does. Because the problem is that would start after approximately the year 33, which I think is roughly when he died. But anyway...
I love how every time you come on the podcast, somehow being an RE teacher helps.
Yeah. And then, obviously... as we've gotten to more current day, in an effort to take into account obviously the diversity of everything we've got going on, we've moved to instead BCE and CE, which is before Common Era, and Common Era, which it sticks to the same date, just without the religious connotations.
Right, so basically what happened is someone went, that's all well and good, and I don't want to rock the boat too much, I'm just going to pretend Jesus didn't exist.
Yeah, it's just take that religious element out of it. And then obviously we've got the Chinese have their own calendar. The Mayans had their own calendar. The Japanese have their own calendar, which has a really complicated way of working.
Yeah.
So yeah, just try and keep it simple.
Yeah, because the other thing as well, and this is something to think about when we get into world building, is that, for example, my world has 4 main continents. 2 of them are intrinsically linked because they were once one continent and they were ripped apart by the convergence. Sorry, I had to hiccup. Yeah. But the other 2 are very singular. And so they may have their own calendar systems, and that's okay because it is unlikely in a D&D adventure you're going to be continent hopping. Unless you're like running a really ridiculously large...
I suppose even if you're running over the span of a continent, you could maybe expect a couple of areas to have different ways of tracking that calendar, but you can always explain the consistency with why they all have the same one, much as the way most of Europe was at one point basically held by the Roman Empire, which I think, I might be horribly wrong here, is basically where we got the Gregorian calendar. At least it's partially based off what the Romans did. And that's why the whole of Western Europe pretty much just used that calendar, because at one point we were all under one thing and there was no point changing afterwards.
Yeah.
So you could explain it with a similar thing like that in your own world, and that just contributes to your world building there as well.
Yeah. Or you do what I do and you put in a specific thing that happens every so many years, and that's how you track it.
Yeah.
So like in my personal homebrew calendar, I haven't put in eras. I probably could, but I haven't yet. I might go back and change that, but currently in its redevelopment stages, I haven't done that. Okay, shall we look at... we've got a load of books here. Shall we look at one more?
Yes.
Oh, do you know what one I would like to look at?
Go on.
Because it comes up in big conversation, is the Wildmount calendar. Because if you watch Critical Role, they stick to it by day. And I think that is a bit ridiculous. I think that is an unrealistic standard. And a lot of things in Critical Role are for a home game, let's not lie. You know, we're not all voice actors.
Yeah.
And we're not all running a D&D show that makes us a living.
Yeah.
But they often say, and there's often been moments I've seen where Matt will say, oh, I can't remember how long it's been since you did that. Someone, you know, the lore keepers will remember, because some of their fans are so dedicated that they note what specific days the campaigns are on. And if you go into like the comments on YouTube or on, you know, on the lore, on the Wikipedia for the lore, it will tell you like this session that you're watching, episode like 140 or whatever, happens on this specific day of this specific month in this specific year. So they stick to it.
Yeah, and it seems Matt's got really complicated and wacky with the numbers of days in each month.
Yes, and that's why I want to talk about it. So, calendar and time within Exandria, which is the world of Critical Role and all of its continents. I'm going to paraphrase a bit of this. Keeping track of time using the Exandrian calendar can make your game world seem more realistic. Yes, it can. It's also a bit of a pain in the ass. It can also allow you to align game sessions with important in-game dates such as holidays. A monster attack on a rural village is a horrible and thrilling event, but the stakes are much higher if that monster attack happens on the day of Harvest's Close Festival. Yes, that is a good point, and absolutely something you should do if you're using calendars. The Exandrian calendar year is divided into 328 days, grouped into 7-day weeks over the course of 11 months. So there's some familiarity there. You've got 7-day weeks, but the rest is a little bit alien.
The rest is wacky.
This calendar was originally established by the elves in an ancient age, and their names for the months and days of the week have stood the test of time. Let's put a pin in that. I'm going to come back to that when we talk about making our own calendars.
Mm-hmm.
The names of the 7 days of the week are... and if there's any Critical Role fans in here, don't at me, I'm going to get this wrong. Mirazen, sure, Grizen, Welzen, Conthson, Folzen, Yulzen, and fuck me, this one's got apostrophe, Dalazen. Sure. Each day is 24 hours long. Again, if you're tracking time, for the love of God, just make your days 24 hours long, because you have 8-hour rests and 8-hour short rests and 8-hour long rests and 1-hour short rest. Just keep it 24 hours. Don't hurt your brain. Don't do it.
No.
The months are... Okay, so this is where it gets a bit weird. You have, in the calendar, it's broken down as month, days in the month, and then the holidays. So the first month is called Horizal, probably pronounced wrong. It's got 29 days. Not unusual. We've got February. And it has 2 holidays. Then you have Mizathar. I'm just going to stop saying the names. The second month has 30. The third month has 30. The fourth month has 31. The fifth month has 28 days. Then you have 31 days, 32 days, 29 days, 27 days, 29 days, 32 days. So it's broken up a little bit weirdly.
Yeah, I might get shot for saying this.
Do it.
But I think I don't like that at all.
I
think
agree.
It's too wacky. At most you really only want maybe 2, maybe 3 different numbers there. You want it to be mostly the same.
This is my point, right? What is the benefit? And there might be one. If there is, I haven't found it. By all means, tell me what you think the benefit is. But what is the benefit to having weird days of months and weeks? Why not have it as either 7 days, because we all know it for a week, or something very simple like 10 days, because then that leads to simple 3-week-long months all the way through the year, or having something that exactly mirrors what we have in the real world? What is the benefit of having random lengths of months and things? I don't understand how that can help your game.
Yeah, you're just going to end up with confusion if you are trying to track things. Like, especially if you're trying to do it quickly, and you're just going to slow yourself and bog yourself down, trying to remember what month has 32 and then which ones have 28 and 29.
And it's that thing as well. Joe and I, sorry, I've interrupted you there, but Joe and I used to say that, having lore is great, and having it written down and being able to say, hang on a minute, let me just check my notes and find it, is fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. And if you've got a complicated calendar and someone says, oh, how many days are in this month? If that question is ever going to come up at the table, again, I don't think it would. You can say, just give me a second, I'll grab my lore document and tell you. And that might give the impression of, wow, RDM is so organized and they've done loads of lore and they've really made this world their own. But the other side of having a simple system that's easy to remember and straightforward is when James says, Ben, how many days until summer? I go, oh, okay, well, you're in X month, probably about 4 weeks because they're 10 days long. I instantly know off the top of my head what seems more like I know more about my world, saying, hang on, let me check out my interesting complex system, or saying, I've got it, here you go, here's the information.
Yeah.
I'm going to say something chaotic because I have chosen violence this morning. You could, I'm not suggesting you should, but if you disagree with us, you could grab a set of dice, roll them, add up all the numbers, and that's how many months you've got.
Oh dear.
You could grab a couple of D6, roll them, add up those numbers, and that's how many days there are in a week. You could create a very disgusting, broken system that way. And if you were going to do that, we couldn't be friends. But if you were going to do that, you'd need a really nice set of dice to do it with. And that's where the Dice Dungeon come in handy. If you head to the... Stifle that laugh, James. If you head to the link in the description of this episode of the podcast, you can head over to the Dice Dungeon and check out their beautiful, pristine, lovely sets of dice. James, what is your favourite Dice Dungeon set that you own? Because I know you have a few.
Oh, does it have to be one I own?
Oh no! If you want to pick one off the website, by all means.
I've been looking at those plain shard ones, and there's really nice red ones, which I think are from the Abyss. I've just not quite got around to getting them yet.
Well, James, should you want to get those dice, but also save a little bit of money, you could use the code WeSpeakCommon on checkout to get 10% off your entire order.
I might have to buy 2 sets then.
Oh, the more you buy, the more you save. That is how maths works.
Yes.
Even though
Please don't shoot us mathematicians.
Yeah. To be fair, I do have I've talked about this a lot. I do have a set of plain shard dice, and I was waiting for them for a long time, and they are the only set I have used since I got them. Even to the point where when they arrived, I also got a bag of fates, and I got a really nice heavy metal set of dice in that bag of fates. If you don't know what a bag of fates is, it's the cheapest way to buy a set of metal dice. You get a random set of metal dice. Some of them are on the website, some of them you cannot get any other way. Go and check those out too if you don't know what set you want to pick, or you're just spoiled for choice, which you will be looking at the Dice Dungeon website. They are still in their bags, that nice bronze metal set, because I keep using the plain shard ones because I love them that much. So go and check those out. The other way to make sure that your calendar system is horrifically broken and disgustingly random with all those dice is to link the holidays to specific locations. Why? I don't know. This is your world, not mine. But if you want to write some interesting creative lore for those worlds, the one place that you could go to get help is Describe. dscryb.com, got it right first time that way, is the place to go and get your box text for your homebrew game written by professional creative writers. There's a load of scenes, spells, and monsters all described out for you for free. But if you want full access to the entire collection, you grab yourself a subscription with 10% off every month for the first 2 years using the code COMMON at checkout. I occasionally, that's a lie, I very often go and look at the written boxes because I'm quite confident in my own creative writing, but sometimes I need that bit of inspiration, and their creative writers are in a league of their own. So go and have a look at Describe. There's another link for them in the description below. With that ad read out of the way, James, shall we talk about creating our own calendars and how we do that?
Yes.
I'm going to take a jug of water. Not because you need that to write a calendar, but because I'm very thirsty.
Helps. Should always hydrate.
Always hydrate. Always. Okay, I'm going to pull up my not even half written, like a quarter written remaster of my Esteroth World Guide, because I have done the calendar. I
mean, it's further on than my calendar, which doesn't exist.
Oh, fun. Shush, you're meant to sound like you're qualified for this episode. Right. My calendar is very complicated, but it was even more complicated, and I fixed it. And I'm going to talk to you about what I did, and then you can tell me how awful it is, James.
Okay.
So, actually, do you know what? Shall I open up the old document and tell you the original calendar system and watch you hate me?
You might as well. And we'll, if the audio suddenly cuts, you'll know I have somehow managed to reach through my screen and throttle Ben.
Oh, God. Okay, hang on. Let me find the old Google Doc. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Okay. And now I want you to know that this calendar no longer exists. I only still have it written because I have my old notes for the bits that I'm still rewriting. Okay, so please don't judge me too hard. But this is an example of what not to do. So for a little bit of context, if you don't know about my world of Kar and the continent of Esteroth, there is a thing that happens every 26 years. It's called a convergence, where all of the planes sort of align. They don't actually align, but people say it's the way they describe it is, the planes align and they all come close together and the walls are thin. So I had it written out that every 26th year is a year of a convergence, where the veils of the planes are so close together that you can travel, touch, and party with other worlds. So that takes place in the final month of the 26th year. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Okay, guess worse. After the 26th year, the calendar restarts. The year is marked in an alphabetical system because it happens every 26 years. So you have Convergence 1, Year A, Convergence 1, Year B, Convergence 1, Year C, all the way through to Convergence 1, Year Z, when Convergence 2 happens. Then you have Convergence 2A, Convergence 2B, Convergence 2C, and so on. Meaning that you have a number and a letter creating your year. Yeah?
Right, that's not too bad so far.
Except I decided to use Roman numerals.
Oh dear.
So your years end up looking like XLVI colon C, XLVI colon D, XLVI colon Z into XLVII colon A after the convergence.
If you'd have just kept your standard Arabic numbers, that'd be fine.
Every month is 28 days long. 1 week is 7 days. A year has 13 months.
Okay, it's not too bad.
And originally I created a god called Calendash because it sounds like a calendar and he was the creator of time. Yeah, got rid of that. Got rid of that very quickly. I was young and naive, okay? Fight me. So that is an example of what not to do, because it just becomes confusion, because you start writing down the years and you look at them and you're like, I don't know how to say this year because it's just a conglomeration of letters.
Yeah, I think as well, I don't like referring to the months by letters. It just...
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
Now, you can do what Faerun does and name your years. That's quite cool. But then you have to name every year. And that becomes difficult, because if someone says, we never know what's going to happen in a campaign, and if someone says, oh, I want to know what year that big war happened, you'd have to then suddenly either go and find what you called it or come up with it on the spot, which is pressure.
Yeah.
So I rewrote it to be, time is tracked in the passing of convergences. This creates an interesting calendar for the world. One convergence is 26 years long. 1 year is 13 months. A month is 28 days. And a day is 24 hours. So you have shorter months with an extra month in the year, which is not too dissimilar from our real world calendar, but it has just a slight difference so that you can kind of feel a little bit fantastical.
Yeah.
Years are titled by their year and their convergence. So, for example, the current campaign, known as Welcome to Esteroth, takes place in the 26th year of the 46th convergence. And that is how years are named. So when you go to a scholar and you say, hello, sir, could you please tell me what year the singular state of Idria invaded the northeastern coast of Esteroth? They would say, oh, yes, of course, that happened in the... Oh, God, what year is it? Shit, I picked a date. I don't actually know the year off the top of my head. Okay, if you say, hey, when did the Quake Sea happen? When did the Quake Sea form? They would say, oh yes, of course, that happened during the earthquake that happened in the midst of the actual 13th convergence. Okay. They would say, oh, when did the Rector's Alliance form? And they would say to you, oh, of course, that happened in the 5th year of the 32nd convergence. So that's how the system works.
Yeah.
Sorry, my chair's squeaking at me. So instantly I had simplified that horrible, disgusting letter thing.
Yeah.
I actually haven't noted how long a week is, but I think it remains as 7 days, because I've kept the 13-month, 28 days thing.
Yeah.
And I've made myself a little chart that says, 1 day is 24 hours, 1 month is 28 days, 1 year is 13 months, which is 364 days, converges to 26 years.
Yeah.
So my advice is come up with a system that feels a little bit unique, but is close enough to our real world equivalent that it's not hard to believe in. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's like when we were talking about something on a previous episode where we basically came to the conclusion of you want to keep it mostly making your own campaign setting. That was the one. Whereas, or was it the gods or something? Keeping it mostly the same, but just putting that little twist on it.
That is when we were talking about the gods during our creation myth.
Yes.
Episode. Exactly. So, like, for example, harking back to that, my Esteroth gods have a mix of the Faerunian gods, because my table know the Faerunian gods. They know of, for example, Mistra. But then I've used some of my own gods and also some of the gods from Greyhawk. And, I've taken the god of magic from Greyhawk and used him for my god for Ka. So I obviously have picked something that's very intrinsical to the world there, which is this natural occurrence of the convergence, which is a fun sentence to say. But, I mean, you can do that. You can pick something that happens every so often, or pick something like, you can have a holiday that happens at the end of the year if you want to mark the passing of a year. Or, for me, the convergence is kind of like a millennium, except it happens 26 years instead of, on a millennium. The other way to do it is to do that era system where you pick something important that happens. So for me, I could have picked the forming of the Rector's Alliance and created that as the start of a specific era, because the Rector's Alliance comes into power and says, here's how we're marking time because we're important.
Yeah. I mean, as well, I suppose if you don't really want to pick something really specific, you could literally just have it as this is just the time from which we actually figured out how to start tracking time.
Yeah.
And anything before can just be, something like the unrecorded period, or give it some kind of cool name that for some reason I can't think of at this moment. And then just have your years just be numbers.
Yeah, which is fine. Yeah, it's year 355.
Yeah.
Right. We haven't really talked about seasons, but I have kept the seasons as winter, spring, summer, and autumn. Fall if you're American. And I think that is the best way to do it, as with like the 24 hours thing. I think keep it similar. If you want to add in your own season because you've had like a magical thing happen in the world and it has changed the way something happens at a certain time of year, like that's fine. But again, that is one of those things that if you add it in, you need to have something more similar somewhere else. So maybe you have 12 months instead of 13 months because you've got this special season.
I mean, I think I would say keep the seasons. I would just say keep them the same, but you can always have weird freak events happen at different seasons. Like you have like monsoon seasons in like Asia. You don't get that in the UK. We don't have monsoon
season in. I was in Costa Rica for monsoon season, and it was the best experience of my life. It was very cool.
Yeah, so I'd say keep those seasons the same, because I mean I can't even think of what you'd change a season to.
Yeah, it's a very specific thing. And like I think that, what we're talking about monsoon areas in the regions and things, we're starting to talk about things that you might not have originally thought about in creating a world. For example, the first time I created Esteroth, I didn't think about ley lines. And like, where tectonic plates are, or I didn't think about, stuff like that. Whereas now, when I look at my world map, I have a world map that shows me tectonic plates. I have a world map that shows me ley lines because that's important to me. I have like all these weird little things, and I can know by looking at the map which area of my region is going to be like Chult and which bit's going to be like Icewind Dale. And you can go into that finite detail. I know you've made a height map, James.
Yeah, I have indeed made a height map.
I have a half-finished height map. But, you can go into that detail and you can use that detail and go into that much detail when creating your calendar. But if you're doing it for the first time, keep it simple.
Yeah.
100%. Do you want to hear the months of my calendar?
Go on.
So I got a lot of help with this with a patron, actually. The aforementioned...
Firestorm?
Firestorm. Thank you. My brain went blank. He's going to hate me for that. Sorry, buddy. Phoebe said to me the other day, she went, maybe you could learn his real name. I was like, yeah, when he wants to tell me, I'm not gonna push it.
I mean, as well, like, who'd rather be like, Jack, but when you could be Firestorm?
I know, exactly. It's a cool name. It's a cool handle.
Yeah.
We were sat on the Vibe Zone on the Discord server, which is one of the VCs, and we were just chatting. And I said, I'm trying to name my months. Have you got any tips? And he said to me, what's one of the original races of the world? What's the oldest race? I said, well, elves, followed by dwarves. He said, okay, do they still stand up in the world, in the lore? I'm like, yeah, they're still around, in a way. He said, okay, would they have tracked time first? I said, yeah, probably. He said, okay, go online, find yourself an English to Elven translator that you like the sound of, and come up with some common names of the months and have them both in common and in Elven.
Okay.
And I think that is an incredible idea. So I did it.
That is pretty
So, for example, bearing in mind I use the seasons like we spoke of. So we have winter. So the way the months fall, the 30 months, you have at the start of the year, 2 months of winter, I think 4 months of spring, 3 months of summer, 3 months of autumn, and then another 2 months of winter.
Yeah.
And then you go back to the top. So winter is called Losing, which is the common, which is the Elven name for it. Its common translation is frosting, because it's frosty. The second month is Nimzig, which is Elvish, and that translates in common to deep snow, because that's when it snows. The next, honestly, it sounds really corny and really simple,
but it works.
But it works, and what's quite fun is if a player ever thinks to say to me, Ben, what does Erlen Wayne mean? And I say, well, Erlen Wayne is the Elven name for the third month of the year, which is the first month of spring. And in common, it translates to winter's wane, because winter is waning.
Nice and simple.
It's beautiful, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, I quite like that system.
So, you know, you can go for that. For example, my favourite one, the second month of autumn. Oh, no, okay, so the second and third months of autumn. The second month of autumn is Hasenfall, which means red fall, because the leaves are red and they fall from the trees. The third month is called Radshan, which translates to leaf go. Because the leaves, they go away. They go away at the end of autumn, don't they? They leave. They leaf go. Oh. So you can have some fun with it. You can take the piss out of yourself, as I do. Yeah, go on.
I suppose you've got that way of doing things, and then if you wanted to take inspiration from our calendar again, you can name the different months after different gods.
Yes.
Or significant emperors, kings. And then when you get tired of that, just have the final ones, you know, September, October, November, December, just be named after numbers.
Yeah, it's so simple.
Yeah, so literally December is like 10th month. Even though it's
Why
the 12th.
Is it called September? Because it's the 7th month.
Yeah, because January and February were added on later on because it didn't quite match up. So if you get tired, you can just do that as well.
Yeah, and if you're naming the days, I've seen things like, Thursday is Thor's Day, and Sunday is Sunday, Monday is Moon Day, and Wednesday is Water Day, and things like that. So, you know, you can do stuff like that too.
I actually don't know what we call our days, what we call them.
Why are you even here? That's the only thing I wanted you to tell me.
Oh, I know about the months,
disappointment.
not the days.
Absolute disappointment, honestly. You're never coming back. I said we were going to put a pin in something, we were going to talk about it, and I
feel like it was. I think you feel like it was naming months and things.
Well, that's okay then, because I've forgotten what it was, and someone will, if we haven't put in a helpful bit of information, it's going to annoy me now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the takeaway here is that you can go as in-depth as you want with this, but if you are doing it for the first time, keeping it simple and keeping it relatable are the key parts to developing your calendar system. And then to make that calendar system matter, because this is the thing, you could spend hours building out a calendar system and then it not come up in the game, apart from you tell your players, oh, the campaign starts in the third month of winter. Like, great. But then is that ever going to come up again? Depends how long the campaign goes on, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So to then make it work is to put those holidays in and to have those events happen in the campaign. When the characters are coming to a city, if you've been loosely tracking time, but you want to show the passage of it, just quietly forward the clock a little bit to the Christmas month and the Christmas holiday that you've put in, for example. And then boom, when they get there, you can explain that this cultural thing is happening. And that will make the world feel lived in, because the players will arrive at this city. Maybe it's somewhere they've been before, or maybe they've been somewhere similar. But when they've come to this one, this special event is happening. And they say, oh, this special event only happens at a certain time of the year. That means time has passed. And it is not just this lineal kind of non-existent feature of this game that kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah. Always consider how that passage of time affects the environment as well. So if your players are stuck in, like, say, one city for a long time, when it gets to harvest season, have people pulling in wagons of food. When
that's something I did in more deep.
Yep. When it's autumn, the end of autumn, leaves are falling. Have people sweeping away leaves. It's just all those little bits.
It really is that simple, though.
Yeah.
Like those little explanatory exposition pieces, and I used to think as a DM, I say these things and they just get forgotten. And yeah, they kind of do, because in the grand scheme of things, those little bits of exposition don't matter. But when you hear them as a player, once off, you think, okay, that's cool. But if you start hearing them over a course of a number of sessions, you start to see the change in the pattern, and you feel, even if you don't pick up on it, you feel that passage of time.
Yeah, it's because it's not a big thing. It's not something players are going to immediately pick up on. They might never even notice it, but it's something which, if it wasn't there, you're just missing that extra little gem, which just helps bring
That bit of
things
sparkle.
things to life that little bit more.
There was one more thing I was going to say. Oh yes. If you really want to get in depth with it, do as it says in Wild Mountain. Have little settlements have special days in the month. Or in the year. There are holidays that are going to be known across your regions, but then going to a random town in the middle of the Hilllands, they might have a holiday once a year that marks, the loss of half the village when trolls attacked. Stuff like that is another way to use a calendar system. And those are plot hooks too.
Yeah, that evil villain, he's going to organise his thing to cause the most loss of life, so when's he going to do it? When everybody's nice and available, having fun at festival.
Exactly. When would you... Okay, we've just become terrorists. When would you set a fireball off in a festival? Yes. Don't. We're not advocating terrorism. Don't do that. This is a game. God, that got very deep. Fuck me. Jesus. Okay, I think that's on that note.
Literal
it's time
bombshell.
Oh no, James. On that note, I think it's time we stop. The final thing I wanted to say. Fuck, I've forgotten it already. I just thought of it in my brain. What was it? If you're running a campaign that it is important that it tracks the time. So, that's when it comes in handy as well. Like, for example, TOA, the death curse is happening and people are dying every day. And if you have a loved one being affected by the death curse, tracking the passage of time could be important to you. So having a campaign or a quest where there is a clock, that's when you're going to want to start using these methods more. Yeah. That was the final note I wanted to say. Okay. Oh, God. I just keep thinking about that comment. James, thank you very much for making me sound like I'm advocating terrorism.
Always.
And I'm not, just to clarify yet again. And for coming on the show. I always love it when you come on because I like talking world lore with you, and I like to remind people that we share a world that we play our D&D games in, and I think that's a very unique, fun thing.
Yeah, no problem. I always enjoy it as well because I get to talk about things I like history, which I can't talk about with most people because most people aren't interested.
I am very interested in history. I'm just not very good at learning it, so I get to ask you the same question over and over again.
I'm used to that.
Why do we have BC and AD? Anyway, dude, thank you very much. We've got, what is the time now in our
We've got an hour.
5:30. We've got an hour before you have to bury your friend Nevin. So go and get yourself a stiff drink. You're going to need it. And I will speak to you again soon, I'm sure, for another bountiful topic where questions about RE will definitely come up again.
Yeah. See you next time.
See you later. Thanks for listening today. If you like the show, do us a favour, leave us a like and review on your platform of choice, and share us with your friends. Send us to your fellow DMs and players so that we can build our community even more. It really helps to get us out in front of more eyes. If you want to support the show, you can by joining our Patreon. Links can be found in the show description and the episode descriptions on all platforms. The music in the podcast is Street Dancing by Timecrawler82. It's licensed under a Creative Commons license by NC. You can find it on the Free Music Archive.